Hi again. So we have continuing of chapter 2. As we have mentioned on previous lesson, we have answering the many questions like what are the ways to explore teaching. So today we have how can teachers explore teaching through self-observation. Okay, here we have the answer of this question. As teacher, we can explore through a process of describing, analyzing, and reflecting on our teaching to achieve this aim. There have created the following cyclic process to collect descriptive of observation. The first step in the cycle is the collected descriptive samples of our teaching, then can be analyzed. This is the second one. This is followed by the third one, reflection and multiple interpretation. The last one, or the last step number 4, is to consider how the same lesson could be taught differently and draw up a teaching plan. This is what we call it a draw of the conclusion. Okay, then we generating the conclusion or from our decision. By implementing the new plan, the cycle returning to the recollection of the samples of the teaching, let's take the closer look at each stage in the cycle. So we should go to the each stage, each one in details. Okay, how can teachers explore teaching through self-observation? As we have mentioned that we have 4 steps. Each step has a different process. Like in the first step, teach while collecting samples of teaching. How can we collect sample through teaching? By either audio or videotape. Analyzing the interaction by listening, review tape, take notes, tele behavior, make short transcript, code the interaction, study interaction, and look for patterns. Step number three, reflection and interpretation. As I have mentioned, changes chances for student to learn English. I reflect? Do I block the student for learning English? What are we should ask ourselves many questions in order to make the reflection. What are my beliefs about teaching? Are my teaching practices consist with these beliefs? Do I do what I think I do in the classroom? Are there any issues of self I need to address? Am I facing my teaching self? And the last steps of exploring self-observation is generate changes. A plan a calculated change, a plan to try the opposite, a plan to adopt random change, a plan not to change anything. Okay, here we have the first in order to discuss in details. Okay, the first one is collect sample of teaching. How can we collect sample? This is the question. When we collect sample of teaching, we have a description of what actually goes in the classroom that focus attention on some aspects of your teaching to give you an idea of areas of teaching that can be described. See a chart on page 20. Listening some of the exploratory questions teachers have asked to collect the sample of teaching that address an aspect of classroom behaviors. It is to our advantage to audio or videotape about learners prefer audio recording because it is easily to use. Also, it is easy to recognize who is talking and study nonverbal behaviors. At first, the audio recorder or what we call it comic order may be a novelty. Why? Students change of behavior. How taping is done often depending on the goals of exploration to obtain useful samples for later analysis. Then we have this steps number 2. How can we analyze the samples after we have recording the samples? we should analyze them. The second stage is to analyze the collected samples of teaching. Analyze also depends on the objective of your observation, objective of your exploration. For example, if you have interested in knowing the number of questions you ask, you can listen to or view the tape and tally each question you ask, as well as the jot down the example of actual questions. You can do the name think for the number of errors you treat, the number of times the student speak English or their native language, and the second, you wait for the student to answer questions. Second way to analyze the collecting of teaching samples is to make short transcripts for audio or video tapes. Again, what you decide to transcript depend mainly on the focus of your exploration. For example, if you are interested in learning how you treat language error, you may make and study short transcripts of times errors are treated. If you are interested is on learning about accuracy of the student language during group work, you can transcripts and study short sections of interaction amongst students during the group work activities. A further step you can take in analyzing the interaction is to code transcripts with the category system, although do not directly discuss such systems in this book or two books: communicative orientation of language teaching and Fosio on communication use in setting. Okay, on the third step, how can interpretation and reflection of the samples? Here we have, after analyzing, we can make analyzing, which is step number 2. We can make sense of description of classroom in the action. To do this, we have focused on several questions. One set of questions we have several of questions in order to reflect on. I think to ask include such as, for example, how does the interaction in this class provide chances for students to learn the language? We have another question: how does the interaction possibly block student from the learning the language? So we have many questions in order to deal with it, as I have mentioned in this slide. The last stage is how can we make decision or decided on change. Deciding on the changes in teaching behavior, the next stage, or what we call the last stage in the exploration cycle, is to decide what changes we want to make in our teaching through such questions as what do I want to continue to do, and what small changes do I want to make in my teaching behavior. One reason to change the way we teach is to solve a problem. This is one reason, okay, to make solving of the problem, to solve many problems of the students. What are the problems of the students? Students don't talk, instructions aren't clear, students speak in the native language too much. For example, if some students aren't talking with the whole class discussion, the teacher may try group work to see if these students will talk with the classmates. If the teacher discovers that the students are not understanding the instruction when they are given orally, the teacher may write them on the board or to overhead. So what is the problem solving? It's the usual way that the teachers make decision about the what is change in their teaching. However, it is also possible to explore the teaching simply to see what happened. Could include doing the opposite of what we usually do, or trying something we have never tried before. For example, even if the student understands the oral instruction, it is still possible to write them down and let the student read them just to see what happens. If most of our questions are from the text, We can ask questions that are not in the text. There are endless opposite possibilities. Here we have some examples what teachers have done inside the classroom. Example, here we have different examples of about the observation process. We have three examples of observation process. The first example illustrates what ESL teachers did to explore the two ways she gave instruction. The teacher videotape her teaching and made short transcripts focusing on how she gave instruction and how on what the teacher did afterward. She discovered that her oral instruction took about 2 minutes and that many of students did not understand them. During the start of a group activity, for example, some students ask each other in their native language what they are not supposed to do. Two students finally asked her to explain the task again. She ended up going from the group to group to explain the instructions, and took 5 additional minutes before the students were all working on the task. She reflects on her way of giving instruction. So the first example about how to give instruction, okay, how to the student decide on the instruction either written by the board or given to the student orally in order to comprehend by them, in order to make them understand inside the classroom and to work together. Okay, to explain the different ways she gave the instruction after talking about with each other, so she decided to try different ways in order to make that one. And one day she wrote the instruction on the board and presented them orally. And the other day she detailed an instruction. She make them in detail. And the third one, she has the student paraphrase the instruction back to her. And the second example is that exploration for prize rewarding the student. The student will be very happy if you reward them by positive rewarding. And why? Because it will be, this prize can be motivating factor. But if the student cannot distinguish what they are, why they are be prizing, then it is useless. Yani it should be give the prize for very good, excellent answer, for good answer. If you are make a question, such as she decide implement small changes in her pricing techniques. For example, she monitored her use of price and verbally expressed it only when she was genuinely impressed. When students submitted written work, she put happy face stickers on their work, but only when their work was considered outstanding. After taping and analyzing her prize behavior again, she concluded after 2 months their work was genuinely improved. Some students even told her that they try harder because they want to see happy face on their work again. And the third example is that dealing with the using question. While the teaching American literature course in Hungary, the teacher wondered about the way used questions in class. So the third example is about the question. Okay, if you remember, we will make rapid review. On the first example, we have what instruction. Second example, we have how to reward student by pricing. The third one is using question. Why we use a question? To better understand the question behavior, I designed a tally sheet, audio tape my class, and using tally sheet, I kept track of the target of my questions to the individual student or whole class. Yani you want to the teacher want to ask individual class student or in a group. يعني mention the one question for a group. and the content of each question about the student, for example, lives, about people, and about places in general, about language, or about the content of reading selection. The theory sheet shows that I found upon the reflection of using questioning was very useful. Why the use of the questioning is very useful? First, it gives the chances for reflecting in teaching questions behavior, and second, the teacher was able to see that the way of questioning techniques demanded dominated class discussion in order to reflect two responses. And the third one, the teacher was able to systematically modify her or his um, questioning behavior. All of this you can find on page 26, paragraph 2. The teacher also reflect on the fact that she display questions. So we have many types of questions. One of these types is display questions. Example, questions for which she already knew the answers, and the content of the lessons mostly concerned about study language. What is the meaning of study language? Study language, learning about language rather than the using of language for communication purpose. You can find this study language and display question on page 27. Next lecture, you should prepare how can teachers explore their teaching through the observation of other teachers on page 28. Some examples, and you have how can teachers explore their teaching observer through talk and through using journal. Happy New Year, hoping feel happy and success. Thank you for your listening. Stay safe and healthy always. See you.